Okay, everyone. So we'll go ahead and get started. We are very, very, very excited to be hosting Deborah DiMare with DiMare Design and vegandesign.org today. So thank you, Deborah, for joining us. And she's going to tell us a little bit more about vegan design and how you can still design luxury spaces using faux alternatives, and that they will also kind of speaking to the points of how they're also healthy from a human standpoint as well without toxins. So we're very excited to learn more. And I will kind of let Deborah take it away in just a moment, but she has also been kind enough to provide a 50% discount on 2 of her online design courses. So I will be providing that information in the chat so that if any of you are interested in checking that out, that the coupon code will be good until May 7th. And we will have some time for Q&A after her presentation. So if you do have any questions or think of any questions, please feel free to send them in the chat. I'll be monitoring them. And then we also have some questions already. So without further ado, I'll let you take it away, Deborah.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm so happy all you guys are here, even though I can only see 4 faces on my screen. I want you, please ask away, because to hear me talk endlessly, I could fall asleep hearing myself talk. So please, no one can talk that long without someone getting tired on the other end. So I've been, just to tell you a bit about my background, I'm from New York originally. I've lived in Miami now for about 24 years, but still very, very connected to the Northeast. I'm in New York all the time. Well, pre-COVID, I was in New York all the time visiting family. We do projects up there. I have 4 children, and they're all grown. I became a designer, not really a decorator, because I'm not licensed. Sorry, I know you're all going through a lot of schooling, but I am self-taught. I have a set of twins. When my twins were in 1st grade, I was a full-time mom up until that point, and I said, okay, I'm ready to start working again. So I was looking into all these little part-time businesses just to be able to do while they're in school. And a very good friend of mine had just bought a home, so I was helping her decorate her house. And when I'm done helping her with her living room and dining room, I get a call from her neighbor. And she said, hi, my name is so-and-so, and your friend Sandy told me that you're a decorator and you designed her home. And I said, well, that's very nice of Sandy, but I am not a decorator. And I just did it out of love of decorating. And she said, let's meet anyway. So I remember I met her at a fabric store, and I spent a couple hours with her, and I had the best time, because to this day I still love fabrics. They're my favorite thing. I could get lost in a fabric store forever. And at the end of the couple hours, she gives me a check. And I remember feeling so good, because I hadn't earned anything since I became a mom. And I remember staring at that check and just being so happy about it. I still remember that. And her sister called, her cousin called, her aunt called. And my husband said, you found a business. I said, but I'm not a real decorator. And he said, well, you have all these people calling you. And that's really how my business started. And I knew nothing. I screwed up so much beyond belief. And I was always quite honest with people. When I would walk into their space, I would say, listen, I'm not a licensed decorator, and I might not know the answer to what you're asking, but I'll figure it out and I'll ask. And that's what I did. And I think that, plus me having to think out of the box, because I think to this day, I still think a little differently, because I lack the wonderful schooling that you guys are getting. And I'm also a mom. So I think I kind of combine both, because it's got to be durable. It's got to be affordable. I mean, of course, I do ultra luxury, this and that, but to me, it's got to be practical. It's got to be practical. I think that's so key. And that's my whole philosophy. With an endless budget, you can design the most gorgeous, magnificent space. But if you can't sit on the chair because it's going to stain, or you can't breathe on it, what's the point of that? To me, that's ridiculous. My business grew. I became a designer on TLC, and it just kind of kept growing. And of course, I learned that I could hire people who knew a lot more than me as far as drawings and things like that. And to this day, I still don't know a lot of technical terminology. I don't. But it's been really interesting, and I feel very privileged and lucky. And my business was doing very, very nicely. I had a really nice business, interesting clients all over, started getting projects, in other parts of the world and parts of the country. And so it's been really terrific. And my family, by the way, is any of this boring? Just tell me if any of this is boring at any point. No? Okay.
No, we are good.
Okay, you let me know, okay? And I'm not, again, being from New York, you can't insult me. So a couple of years ago, well, my family and I, we've always been obsessed with animals, always. Like our pets literally rule us. We are the worst dog parents ever in the world because our dogs have no training. They're the worst, but we adore them and we love them so, so dearly. And I've always, up until a couple of years ago, 5, 6 years ago, I was designing with what most designers use, all kinds of fabrics, leathers, wools, silks, anything, down, skins. And during this time, I'm also still involved with all these animal rights organizations. I'm a PETA approved business. Just recently, I became a board member of Farm Sanctuary, which I'm thrilled with. And I always say you have to be ready for change. You must be ready for change because it's a process, and ignorance can be bliss, and I always say when you see the dark side, it's really hard to go back. And I'm always getting videos and things passed on my feed all the time, constantly. And I guess that day I was ready for change because I opened a video from PETA about dog leather. And dog leather exists because China is, they're really the leading exporter of leather. And leather can be anything with a skin: dog, cat, seal, kangaroo, raccoon dog, not only cow. And I saw this horrific, horrific video on dog leather that I literally get choked up when I think about it. And I looked at that video and I said, that's it. I'm not using anything animal-based. And it was literally that knee-jerk reaction, which I don't recommend to anyone because it was insane. But I just couldn't. It's that video has never left my brain. So I said, okay, I'm not sourcing anything made with any animal products. Of course, it's impossible. You're never going to be completely vegan in your design because things still, even if it's an organic cotton, sometimes it can still have a milk byproduct in it, in the finishing. But I decided that day I was no longer using anything made from animals as much as I could control that, which meant no leather, no silk, no wool, no down, no skins. And when you think about designing a space, almost every room in a house has something made with animals, almost. So I literally had to start from scratch with my sourcing. And it was really interesting because I learned a lot. And I taught my vendors a lot. And it took a while for me to find the fabrics that I liked a lot and felt good. And I entered this rabbit hole because when I thought that I was doing this just for animals, I quickly learned that it wasn't just about animals. It was about child laborers and workers and the planet. Because animal-based materials are much more toxic than non-animal based. It takes much more water. It takes much more energy. The runoffs from all the chemicals that are used go into all local villages and streams. The average Indian worker in a tannery dies at the age of 55. As I was learning more and more and more, I just couldn't believe it. Nearly 1 billion animals are killed yearly for the skins industry. There's no such thing as responsible wool. It's complete crap. It was a term made up by Patagonia and many, many other very large wool conglomerates in order to protect their name. It's just horrific when you think about, when I think about it, I just can't believe the impact that the animal-based textiles and furniture industry has on the world. it takes 2 years from a calf being born until they're slaughtered for their skin. And of course, the way they're slaughtered is so inhumane, and it's not even, I can't even describe it. It's so horrific. But the amount of energy and money and land, an acre a second, being cleared for animals to graze that are then going to be killed. The methane that's produced by the cows for cattle and for their skins is stronger than pollutants for automobiles. So it can't continue. And for me, at first, it was about ethics. I then realized it was about, again, about ethics of workers, of humans and non-humans, but then also about the toxins and the chemicals that are released. Leather has over 250 chemicals, toxic chemicals, lead, chromium, arsenic. And those chemicals don't just magically disappear when you sell it to a client. You know, years ago, I would get little leather bean bags for kids. I realized I was literally encasing them and cocooning them in all these chemicals. There's over 80,000 chemicals that are legal to use for the textiles industry, and only 7% of them have been tested. It's insane. A fabric's weight is almost 30% of its weight. So if I weigh 15 pounds, 45 pounds of me are chemicals. So I just learned all these things, and I've never stopped learning. And something really interesting happened. I started doing this, and I started getting emails. The first email I got, I'll never forget, was from a designer in Australia. And she asked me about vegan resources, that she wants to go vegan and humane in her small business. And I said, how did you find me? And she said, oh, you're #1 on Google. I didn't even know that there's no one doing what I was doing. So I was #1. And so then another email will come in and another email will come in. So finally we were like, you know what, we need to create like a course, because it was like becoming almost a full-time job responding to all these designers, which I was so thrilled to spread the word. And as I always say, never compete with one another. Never. You guys stick together. Designers think that there has to be competition with one another. No, I always say when we're doing webinars and we're talking about things, and I always like to get to know the audience on the other side. And the other day I was doing a webinar, and 2 of the women were breast cancer survivors, the designers. And we were talking about niches. And I said, ladies, you better get together after this. 2 are better than 1. You can start to work together, start to write blog posts, focus on health, breast cancer, this and that. So that's one thing that you guys, I hope you get out of this. Work together. There's no competition. There's plenty of projects for everyone. Wait, so what was I saying? I was talking about, so anyway, with vegan design, so we created this course. And the course now has been taken in, I don't know, almost every continent, from Bali, Hong Kong, Munich, Saudi Arabia, places that I didn't even imagine that population was interested, or that there were clients who were interested in healthy and humane options. And so it's been really, really interesting. And that's how vegandesign.org came about. And that turned into really like a platform for education. And then we put a shop on there, because I never want people to say, I want to buy something that's non-toxic and non-animal based, but I don't know how to find it. So we put a shop on there. We just keep adding, and we have videos, and our community is so wonderful and so passionate. And there's not a week that goes by that we don't get an email saying, you better get this off your site because this is this and that. And I appreciate that so much when we get blasted or busted for something, because that's how we all learn. We all learn together. So I sort of have become the vegan design pioneer and expert, and I'm very proud of that. And I'm very proud that now I've been in the Hollywood Reporter and the LA Times, not to give myself accolades, but just to show how the world is changing. And as, what's his name, Jack Wa of Alibaba, he says the new definition of luxury is about experience and wellness. And that's something that you guys can really hone in on when you graduate. You know, your job is not only about decorating beautiful spaces, it's a big, big task that you have ahead of you, because you are creating, your goal should be to create environments that make people the best they can be physically and mentally. And you can do that in the environment that you can create. You can create environments that are positive, that are clean, that are healthy, that have good energy, because I do believe in energy. And so that's in a nutshell kind of my story. And I have this whole like PowerPoint, which is fine, but kind of boring. But if you guys have any questions right now, I love to answer questions in the beginning because it kind of sets the flow of things.
So I'll invite anyone if after Deborah's wonderful intro, and please do not think that was boring whatsoever, because
Okay.
I think for us as students, it's always good and beneficial for us to hear the backgrounds of designers, because designers come from so many different backgrounds.
Yes, yes.
So thank you for sharing that with us. And I've seen some people just commenting in the chat, about your statement about working together, not competing, but also just, an amazing intro, inspiring, and that you have a great mindset. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Okay.
And, I invite anyone that if y'all do have any questions at any point, please send them in the chat. I'll be monitoring. And if you want, I can, some of the questions that have already been submitted, I want to kind of touch on a couple of those to start.
Sure.
So the first one, let's go with this one. How do you make vegan design also sustainable? Often vegan can mean synthetics that are terrible for the environment.
Yes. So the goal is, I always say, to do the best you can. Okay. So my ideal perfect fabric would be a GOTS certified cotton, right? Because it's pretty much non-toxic. It's fair trade, meaning that they're protecting the laborers and they're getting fair wages and they're protecting children. And it's cotton. It's not an animal-based product. So do the best you can. Now, having said that, when you see things, I think it's Pottery Barn or other major big box stores tout animal-based products as sustainable, that's like kind of saying like, healthy steak. It's an oxymoron. There is no way that an animal-based product can be sustainable. It is impossible. And again, it's a complete lie and it's bogus. So yes, you have to understand that, nylons, polyesters, all those materials, yes, that I try to avoid petrochemicals. I do my best to avoid that because that's like bottom of the barrel, non-animal based, because they're toxic. Environmentally, they're destroying the environment. Now, there was many studies done. PETA did a bunch of studies because I remember I asked PETA in the beginning if they could do me a favor. I want to know if non-animal based materials like a petrochemical and are more toxic or as toxic as a leather. And they sent me, which I wish I had saved because they sent it to me years ago. They sent me studies that show that even though it's still toxic, it's less toxic than animal-based materials. And I would think the reason for that is also the duration of time that it takes for an animal's life cycle. Your whatever it is, you have to add a couple years because they need to be 2 years old typically till they're slaughtered. So do your best in finding things. If you go on the site or if you take the courses, I have my list of like my ideal choices and the ones that, okay, if I have to use it, I have to use it. So I'm always going to try GOTS certified. That GOTS certification on animal-based material to me is like, wow, that's like a gold star fabric. And recently we found something because what happened is I always have to explain to clients too that, because I try to choose like a GOTS certified fabric, which is very pure and very natural, it's also not durable at all because it's very pure and very natural. So, and I won't use Scotch Guard because Scotch Guard is just, you might as well just, spray it on your body and just kiss yourself goodbye, because it's all chemicals. Finally, through one of our sources, she told me about a spray called Nano for Life. I actually did a little video on it, and it's completely non-toxic and it works. It works like I did the video. It was like an infomercial. It was hysterical because I poured wine after spraying it on like a plain cotton and it just rolled right off. So now we have the opportunity, because of products that are coming out like Nano for Life that are non-toxic, where we can take a very soft, delicate fabric like a clean, non-toxic, non-animal based material, and then put some sort of protector on it, and it's perfect. So it's great that all these things are coming about, and it comes about because if you demand it enough and you squeeze the corporations, they have no choice. It's like Bentley. They say they're going to be coming out with a vegan leather, which is also like an oxymoron, a Bentley, but yet you have your clients in California that are more ethical, and they want vegan leather in these really expensive cars. And they're going to have to meet those demands because they're squeezing them. So every nickel you spend is power. And of course, I always say education is power. You know, when you have the right answer, that's when you can change people's minds. You know, I also believe everyone has their own way of promoting what they believe. For me, it's always about educating the person on the other end. PETA has their way. It's more aggressive and it works. Ingrid Newkirk, she's an incredible woman, the founder of PETA. Farm Sanctuary has their own way. You know, every organization has their own way of trying to make change. For me, it's been educating. If I can educate the person on the other end, then they make their own decision. For example, many of our clients don't even know that I'm a vegan designer, believe it or not, because a lot of, especially the high-end projects, are referral. So they don't even look at the website. They hire us. But hey, I'm not going to tell them I'm a vegan designer. You know what? They don't ask, I don't tell. So they want leather couches, leather this, no problem. I bring faux leathers, high-end faux leathers, as expensive almost as a hide. Most of them don't say anything. Once in a while, if they say, oh, is this leather? I have to be honest. And I say, no, it's actually a faux, but I want real leather. It's more luxurious. You know what? Next time I see you, I'm going to bring you some leathers. Oh, that's my dog. Hold on. I'm so sorry. I am so sorry. Hold on. I'm going to do the little thing.
No worries.
Okay. Let's see if it works. The next time I see them, oh, okay. I'm on a webinar. Sorry, this is doing it in the house. Right. The next time I see the client, what I do is I bring real leather and I bring faux. And I say, here we have two options. They both look fabulous. They both feel fabulous. Scratch one of them with your nail. And then I have them scratch the other one with their nail. Well, got to do it again. Okay. And the real leather scratches because it's a skin, just like our skin. Then we pour some grape juice or whatever on both. Real leather is porous, it stains. They've always gone with the faux because I've educated them and I've allowed them to make their own decision. And education is power, which is why I want our community to be as educated as possible. And I'm always doing my best. We're always coming up with new courses. We're always just having webinars. We're just always trying to educate them. So that was a very long answer to your question.
We appreciate it. Give us all the details because we want to know everything.
Okay.
But since you kind of led into that, we've had a few questions come into the chat. So
Sure.
I have been seeing them. So I just wanted to let everyone know that we'll definitely try to get to all of them. But since you were kind of touching on this just now, someone asked, early on in transitioning into vegan design, how did you go about working with and educating clients that didn't share your priorities? Or did you only accept projects from clients that wanted vegan interiors?
It's an interesting question because here's how I look at it. It's sort of like, you know how they say Nordstrom's has the best customer service, that in Nordstrom's, anyone could bring, I remember I saw a documentary on the president, anyone can bring in a return, even if it's from another store. Their philosophy is we'll take it because we want them in our store and not going to the other store to return it. So we want, fine, bring it to us because now we're going to sell them other stuff. That's the way I look at it. I want them in my house so I can start my teachings. So I take on any client at all. And because I've learned and I'm educated enough, I have the resources now to show them the product, which is why we also have a resource guide that we created for designers, because they need product. They need to know what lines to look for and what lines to get, because that took us a long time to figure that out. So I want them in my house. And because I have the resources now to show them beautiful, beautiful. If they want super luxurious, I'll show them the most super luxurious, expensive faux alternatives that are terrific. If they want leathers, if after endless times of showing them things, they want animal-based product, what I do is I simply tell them, I'm just not comfortable with it, because it's not only for ethical reasons, but for your health. I feel that I'm not doing my job. So get that item on your own, no problem. Purchase it on your own, and we'll just continue with everything else. I have never once had a client go on their own. It's kind of like telling your child they can eat as many cookies as they want, and after 4, they're nauseous. So I think it's the same thing. By giving them the freedom, I'm not, if you're aggressive and if you're squeezing someone, they're going to want to fight back, and they get mad. If I say, no, I'm sorry, I won't work with you, it's only leather, they're going to say, like, screw you. You know what? There's a million designers out there. But if I'm passive and if I'm understanding and compassionate about what they want, it's okay. I'm not your mom. Go get it on your own, no problem. I wish that you would consider this, because quite honestly, that's going to be very toxic. You have a child who has allergies and asthma and respiratory issues. Even if I did offer animal-based products, I wouldn't suggest it, because then I'm not doing my job. So that's why I approach it. Just education, just the more education you have under your belt, then you have the right answers.
Great, thank you so much. And I think you just actually answered this question that just came through, but someone was curious, if a client does choose the real leather or the non-vegan option, do you accommodate that choice and realize that you're offsetting that choice with other vegan choices within your design?
Yes, because it's like everything. I think once that your client, it's funny when I do projects where the clients don't even know that the spaces are vegan. When I'm finished, you do your walkthrough and the installation with the client, I always say, you should be very happy and proud of your spaces, because there is no blood or tragedy attached to anything in your home. It's all good energy. And even the most conservative people in the world, they look at me and they're like, wow, because it's amazing. So, any other questions?
Yes, we are. I'm really excited about this. People are coming up with some great questions. So I'll address these, because we've actually had a few come in regarding the durability of materials. So one person said, I'd also love to hear Deborah speak to durability of materials. And then someone said, how do you do sustainable and vegan, which is also durable and that lasts? And then also, what tips do you have to preserve and care for your fabrics in an eco way?
Okay. Well, the tips to preserve and care, I think I might have just mentioned that, because I'm thrilled with this new product that we found, Nano for Life, I think it's called. It's incredible. It really is a game changer for me, because now I can really, especially when I'm doing nurseries and kids spaces, I can use very soft, non-toxic materials and selections, and not have to worry at all about durability. As far as furniture, we do our best to find things that are as non-toxic as possible. So clearly they're more sustainable. I personally will never use any tropical woods. I will not use any of that, only things that are sustainable and reclaimed. So I think that vegan and sustainability really, they just go hand in hand, because if something is vegan, unless it's something like a petrochemical, it really is a very, very sustainable product. So that's one question. What were the other questions? There was 2 others.
The other ones were mainly just asking about the durability. So how do you do vegan and sustainable while also maintaining the durability of the material?
Now, as far as durabilities, there's new faux leathers out there, some that are less toxic than others, because faux leathers are also toxic. Again, not as toxic as a real leather. And there's more and more and more on the horizon. Have you guys ever touched upon biofabrication in your studies or no? You know, biofabrication is really, it's amazing. I went to the conference a couple of years ago. It was in Brooklyn. Biofabrication is right now in the world, there are labs and there are places and all over the world that are finding alternatives to textiles and materials that are made from plants and all interesting things. A lot of these things are even made in the lab. There's a company called Modern Meadow. They're making a coutured leather that it's going to be incredible, and they're making it in test tubes. And it looks and feels just like leather, and it's going to have layers to it, and you can have designs in it. There's mushroom leathers called fungi leathers. In Italy, there's a very big company doing that. They're producing like hides of mushroom leather that grows because it's mushrooms and it's fungi. There's cactus leathers, there's grape leathers, which they're using from the rinds of wine. When they crush the grapes, they're making leathers out of it. So there's all these silks that are being made from algae and coral and things like that. So that is the future, I believe, of materials and textiles, because we can't continue going this route. It's just not working. We just can't. We just can't continue this route. We're destroying the world and we're killing everyone with everything that's going on that's attached to it. So biofabrication is really interesting. And I published a book called Vegan Interiors, and we devoted one section of the book to biofabrication. And I was fortunate enough to interview some of the leading people in the world on biofabrication. And it's just fascinating just to speak with them and understand how they see the future and how they know change must happen. So as far as durability, I find, like, you know, your faux leathers clearly are much more durable than a real leather. You know, wool to me is not durable. Wool, it smells gamey. It's very porous. It holds stains. It's very scratchy. So if you have anyone who has any kind of respiratory issue or sensory issue, like a child or an adult in the spectrum of autism, you would never want to choose anything that's so scratchy. Down, of course, is extremely dangerous. It's filled with pesticides, very allergic. There's an actual illness called feather duvet lung. It's the weirdest name in the world for a disease or an illness. And it's some people have a reaction to down feathers and they develop scar tissue in their lungs. So there's all these horrible things that can happen from all of the pesticides that are laden in all of these animal-based materials.
Great, thank you. And this was a very interesting question that came through that I'm very curious to hear the answer as well. Many indigenous cultures use and respect animals in a spiritual and sustainable way. What are your thoughts on indigenous cultures using all resources for products, not just fabric?
I think when the indigenous cultures use, for example, they take one animal and they slaughter that animal, but they're using every part of the animal, correct? So that's okay, you know, I mean, it's also their culture. The way we slaughter our animals in this world for the average American or other, it's despicable, you know, and who am I to tell an indigenous culture that's been around for centuries and so respectful of the world and all living beings, how to act? Like, to me, that's respectful. I don't know if that makes sense or not. Maybe I'm contradicting myself, but I think it's respectful. Because they're not slaughtering 1,000 animals. They're not putting them in the most horrific conditions. I mean, if you see a wool farm, if you see what cows go through, it's just unbelievable that we humans are capable of that, we are capable of that. Alligator farms, ostrich farms. It's just awful. So I don't look down upon that. I don't. I'm curious as to what everyone else's thoughts are regarding that.
Yeah, it's been really interesting. Everyone's been kind of chiming in their agreement with you, and even I personally feel the same. It's so different from, you know, because the term byproduct gets thrown around so much, and I've seen that in a lot of the resources and the videos that you share through the Vegan Design .org group on Facebook, which, FYI, if no one is a member of that group, please go and join it, because Deborah shares multiple resources and articles and videos each day that are just, I mean, I've learned so much from Deborah already in the short time that I've been
So
kind of
happy.
following and keeping up with her. But even this presentation has been very eye-opening. But she does share resources through the vegandesign.org Facebook group. So you can always find a link to that on the website to join. But yes, everyone is chiming in with their agreement to your statement regarding the indigenous cultures. And I think it's not only done in a respectful manner from their standpoint, but as you said, they're using every part, and
Yes.
they usually are very grateful towards the animal, and they make sure to kind of put that gratitude into the universe, and just a thankful and appreciation for it. So yeah.
Yes. Yes. I'm curious as to what, is this group, are you all graduating within the next year or so?
So if
Or
everyone
it's
wants to kind
diverse?
of chime in, I'll let Deborah know what everyone is saying. Whether you are graduating within the next year or so, let us kind of know a time frame. Let us know if you are an alumni of the program, because it's always interesting to see if any of our alumni members are keeping up. But yes, we have one student that this is actually her last quarter. Congratulations, that must be so exciting.
Yes, congratulations.
So we have last quarter, we have last year, some are just starting, some are graduating within the next 2 years, very first quarter. We do have an alumni, welcome, so happy that you joined us. First quarter, one more quarter, early next year just started. So some all over in the program.
Because, I think about it and, I speak to so many students. I love speaking to students because you guys are the future, and as I said, your job is not just about, picking out pretty throw pillows. It's so much deeper. And I think niche is the future, or it's here and now actually, because there's so much competition, because the world is so much bigger. And, traditional designers, unless you keep up with the change that's going on, you're going to get lost in the shuffle. And I think that online design, purchasing products online can be a blessing or a curse for you. Because I think the one thing that I see that design school does not teach is the business of design. That's what I have found. Yes, right? It teaches you, it's funny because we've had a couple schools ask us to put together like a little kind of course to help designers when they first graduate on just how to set up their own little business to start if they don't want to work for a big firm. Because I think defining what your passion is, like what keeps you up at night. I say, what is your passion? And for me, I guess it was vegan design, but I didn't realize I didn't realize the day that I said, I'm not doing this anymore, how my whole life would completely change. And it did in a wonderful way. I have such a purpose. I always loved what I did. Although I have to be honest with you, I was getting a little burnt out a couple of years before that, because dealing with clients is difficult, because our business has a side to it that I think, as a friend of mine, a designer friend said to me, he said, I think the issue we have is that, especially very high-end stuff, you have sometimes these very dramatic, unhappy spaces of families and businesses and this and that, and they hire you, and in their mind, they're thinking you're going to make their life happy now because you're changing their spaces. So we create these great spaces, we leave, and they're still miserable. And so I think that's why, there's a bazillion chat rooms for designers on how to deal with difficult clients. And I think it's just the nature of our business, because it's such an intimate business as well. Like I have clients, I know how my clients fold their boxers, you know what I mean? Because we're doing closets. So it's like a very personal business. So I think that if you can find something that you feel so passionate about or that you can connect with, that's one of the best ways to first start when you graduate. So as I say, when I do webinars, it's like I try, when we're talking about how to start your business, because I love doing that, because my business just kind of started, but I learned so much because I screwed up so much. So I think I've like done every big mistake you possibly could, and I always ask people, like, what do you love? Like, if you could wave a magic wand and you could focus on anything and, money wasn't an option, what would it be? And it's so interesting to hear what people say, it gets so deep and so emotional for people. I remember there was one woman in one of our webinars, and she lost her daughter like 5 years before that to this very rare disease. And so that turned into her niche, again, about health. There was another person whose parents had to move into their home, and that we realized that's what she's good at now. She knows about how to design for elderly people, aging in place, huge business, right? What do they say? The next 10, 15 years, most of the population is going to be 65 and older, So I think you have to think about that. Another person loved taking movie sets and creating that. That was her pastime, like her fun thing. She would sketch a movie set and then make it into a room. And I'm like, you know what? There's an audience for that. There's really an audience for that. So I think you have to really start writing down things, just start writing down things that excite you within your world of design. And even if it's not in your world of design, there's always a way to connect the dots. Look, I love animals. Okay. What does that have to do with design? I've made it had to do with design. I have connected the dots, and I speak a lot in places or now virtually that I know that the person on the other end doesn't give a rat's ass about animals, but they have me speak about healthy design. So I change my story for my group, but my goal is I'm still saving animals because I'm talking about healthy design. So I think that's something that you really have to think about and start writing things down. Start like just making notes of like, wow, what, that's so interesting. What excites me? What's this? Some people just love, grouping things together, accessories. They love it. They love it. They love it. Okay. That could be a business. What's great about the world now is you can create a business anywhere, anytime. You just have to know what you're talking about, and you have to become the best person in it. And it's kind of like this thing where you say, I help people blank buy blank. That's like a good thing. I help people, have a healthy, ethical life by designing spaces that are non-toxic and vegan. So you have to fill in those blanks. And that's a good way for you to kind of define what you'd like to do, because you're going to graduate. Okay, you have this great degree. Now what? Right?
That's such a great tip. And I had, some of our attendees were also kind of thanking you for that tip. But I remember there was one professor that also said to just start saving things that you find inspirational, because you'll recall it in your mind and you'll go and look for it. So to kind of like, if it's digital or print, snap a picture of it and kind of have it saved in a file, but have it organized so that you can easily find that inspiration. But I also didn't think about writing things down. And so I think that's a great tip, that write down, save images as you come across it, just find out the best way to save it.
I have a million of these, and I keep them all over in my car, everywhere. And I'm always writing things down. And, it's interesting what comes from other things. When we started to create the nursery course, which I've always wanted to do, the vegan and non-toxic nursery and kids room course for many reasons. One, I think it's a great market. People are always going to continue to have children. And also I've learned so much about chemicals. But what happened was when we started doing the course, it became so much more, because then when we were talking about, because the course it's a very, very good course if you guys want to learn a lot about also toxins with vegan design. And so, of course, within the course, we have parts about how to decorate, like my personal tips that I use and my system of designing a space, what I do. And then we were like, well, I'm not into the pink rooms, the boys is blue rooms. And then we start talking about transgender and gender neutral. And if a child or a parent doesn't know the child's sexuality. And that's like a really interesting topic for me. That's so interesting. So there's a whole niche within kids' rooms, So there's always topics that are fascinating or that fascinate you that you can delve into more and sets you apart from another designer. So really dive deep into what excites you. You know, there's psychology of design. You know, that's so interesting too. Designing for singles. I mean, you can be as specific as you want. Designing for single people wanting to meet a match. Well, I remember one of my good friends whose space I was helping her with. She's a gorgeous girl in her 30s, accomplished this and that. I went to her apartment. She had one nightstand next to her bed, and the other side still had boxes. I said, you know, a therapist would have a field day with this. Let's take a picture of it. I said, you say you want a partner? You have one nightstand for yourself, and you have boxes piled to the ceiling on the other side of the bed. I said, think about the psychology of that. You know, so there's a million topics. Any other questions?
Yes, we do have a few. I was going to ask, was there anything, did you want to continue on with questions or?
It's much more interesting than, I mean, I can go on with this, but I like answering the questions.
Yes, I'm loving it. It's like having a conversation with everyone here, even though we're virtual. So I'm loving it. Thank you all for the questions, and please keep them coming. This one came in a few minutes ago, and I'm interested also in hearing this answer. How do you address greenwashing? I feel like there are a number of products or companies that use terms such as sustainable or eco-friendly when the product really isn't sustainable.
Yeah, most companies greenwash. I mean, that's just a fact. And the most you can do is just try to do your research, do the best research you can. You know, it's interesting because in the nursery course, we were fortunate enough, I have 5 experts in the course, which is great because talk about greenwashing, like they really help you understand it in a way. One of them was, you know, Dr. Bronner's soap, Dr. Bronner's soaps. Okay. So Dr. Bronner's soaps, right? At first, I didn't want Dr. Bronner's soaps. We had Lisa Bronner as an expert, and she's incredible. I mean, she knows everything about everything, and you should have her speak if you can get her, because talk about an education. But at first I was like, no, I don't want Dr. Bronner's. They use palm oil, and palm oil is a derivative of the Amazon, and it's killing the entire orangutan forest. Like, I never buy anything with palm oil. And then my assistant delved deeper. She said, no, wait a minute. They've actually created their own palm tree farms that are completely sustainable. So they're not cutting down any of the Amazon. So now, as a person who just looks at the first layer, I would have completely denounced, forget it, I don't want Dr. Bronner. They use palm oil. But guess what? They're awesome. They're creating work. They're saving the orangutans. They're saving the forests. So you really have to look into, you have to delve deep, because most companies greenwash. That's just a fact, because eco-friendly is, you know, the great buzzword. And so it's just like sustainable wool, sustainable leather, same thing. It's all garbage. So you really have to look into it, because also, you know, greenwashing, they count on the ignorance of the consumer. So they'll say something like, there's no dyes in our iron coffee table. Well, guess what? There are no dyes in an iron coffee table, you know, but it's like they're creating a question of apprehension, and they're posing questions and putting concern into a customer or a consumer where that has nothing to do with what they're selling. So it's almost like creating a little smoke on the side, you know, so they don't focus on the real issue, the real greenwashing issue. So you have to do your research.
Great tip, thank you. I would also like to present this one to you that someone asked earlier. How do clients respond and react to vegan alternative pieces, and how does vegan compare in pricing?
Mm-hmm. Well, clients, I think, you know, it depends on the client. If I'm working with a client who's really, really ethical, and by the way, very few of our clients are vegan, by the way, you know, they're really not vegan. And I don't know any of our clients that are vegan. So, but many of them are, they're aware of the environment and they want to do their best. Okay. So they're thrilled that everything has less impact, whatever they're purchasing on the world and all living beings. And what was the second part of the question? Oh, durability.
Well, it was speaking to the cost.
Oh,
So how
cost.
does it compare in pricing?
It's like everything, you know, there's As a rule, it's very affordable because you don't have wool, you're not using silks, real silks, you're not using real leathers. So it's definitely much more affordable until we get into the custom level, which I do a lot. And custom, of course, is expensive because it's custom. So when I do a custom piece, I mean, the feet of a sofa are reclaimed wood. My fill is very different. I'll use sometimes kapok, or I'll use all different things. And then we wrap it in like an organic muslin cloth before we wrap it again in the fabric. So that's where it becomes expensive. But as a whole, it's definitely much more affordable, which is why when you do this, you have to understand your costs, because you're not making what you typically would be making on, a $5,000 sofa versus a $1,000 sofa. So what we do is we have virtual design services, which I love, by the way. And, we do the regular projects because that's really where the bread and butter is. But the virtual services, you make less, but yet you have to charge upfront a fee that will cover and where you'll earn some money, because you're not making that kind of markup because things are less expensive.
Okay, and another question, and I think you've touched on this in multiple moments throughout your presentation, but someone did ask this, and maybe we can kind of just get like an overall answer, but could you please explain what is vegan if we are not talking about fabrics?
To me, vegan would just be something like, for example, with fabrics, clearly non-animal based. And if sometimes paints, for example, there's paints, a lot of times, most paints contain animal byproducts in it. Glues, a lot of glues, furniture also sometimes will have animal byproducts in the finishes. So that's where it would translate. Carpets, clearly, into the textiles, flooring, not so much. So you mostly have it in the dyes. Wall coverings, a lot of wall coverings can have felt. They can have leather panels. They can be painted with paints that are not vegan. Vegan paints are hard to work with. What we actually have a very good building biologist. His name is James Gardner, and he was also in our nursery course, and he's terrific. He has done webinars with me before, and he talks a lot about paints. And it's interesting because now line paints are becoming more popular again because they're beautiful and they're completely vegan and they're durable. So, and they're not toxic at all. So really every part of the furnishings industry, you have options that are vegan and non-vegan. You have to look because a lot of the finishes and things like that contain animal byproducts. The milk from, there's something called, I forget the name of it. It's from the cow. There's something that's in paint that's a byproduct of cow. I think certain paints also contain like beetles and stuff like that.
Wow, you learn something new every day.
Every day, I tell you.
I did not realize that, but it's also been interesting to see the technology that's been coming as far as paint go, because so many now are zero VOCs, but then they're also helping purify the air as well while giving color to the space. And so it's really interesting products that are being released. But then I feel like sometimes, again, do your research because you don't know, does that mean additional toxins are being...
Exactly. They're taking one toxin away, but doubling up on the other.
Right. And then kind of to piggyback on the previous question we asked, and while we're speaking about toxins, someone had asked earlier, are you saying that leather pieces have toxins and chemicals that do not dissipate over time?
They do not dissipate. Nothing dissipates, just like paint. People think you air out the room, that it's gone forever. No, it's still there. Off-gassing. You have off-gassing in painting. You have the same thing in fabrics. They're extremely toxic. And our skin, remember, our skin is a sponge. It's porous. So whatever rubs up against our skin or whatever is in the air, we're going to breathe in, which is why bedrooms are just, bedrooms are one of the most important spaces in a home to design, because at night is when our body's repairing itself, when we're breathing slowly, our body's warm. Whatever we're wrapping ourselves in is going right into our body. It's like the perfect environment for our body to absorb whatever is around us. So that's why I'm always doing videos on sheets and bedding. I mean, you're wrapping yourself in sheets, so, and I always say, never get wrinkle-free sheets. They're soaked in formaldehyde. That's why they don't wrinkle. They're so toxic. Our body absorbs everything. Our environment shapes us, So you have to be careful, especially for babies, the fragile population, babies, people with issues, the elderly. It's really frightening when you start to learn what goes into our furniture and decor.
It is. It's like I mentioned earlier, it's been very enlightening to learn everything that I've learned just being a member of your Facebook group and following you on Instagram. Scary, but it's also like once you have that knowledge and that education,
Yes,
you appreciate it. So it's
yes,
it's a scary process to learn some of these things, but
yeah,
you're thankful for that information
yeah.
and that education afterwards.
Well, you know what, when we came out with the vegan design course, we had to redo it because when it first came out, like you see here, this is China, this is dogs for dog leather. Okay, this tragic image. And so what we did in the modules was we were also showing it was too graphic and people couldn't handle it. So we revised the course entirely and we don't have any of those. We just show a picture like this for a second, And on the last module, which is if you want to take it or not, we show there's more graphic videos for people. But I always say, I know it's hard to do, but you should try to watch it if you can, because it changes you as a person. But I think it can change you in a positive way to know that you really do, what you do affects the world. We're all connected. Energy is connected, right? So me talking to you right now, my energy is affecting a child in Africa. That's just, we're all energy. So, it's tough to watch, but if you can, you watch it. But we had to do that for the course. We had to tamper it down a bit because it was too much,
I'm glad you touched on that, because even just seeing this image has been difficult. But again, it reminds you why you're doing what you're doing, or why you're trying
Yes,
to make
yes,
the change, why even we're here today. All the
yes,
attendees that we here today that are here today are taking the time to educate themselves. And so
yes,
as hard as it is to see that image, it's a reminder on why we're
right,
taking the time to do this.
right.
And I do recognize that it is 2:00 or 2 minutes past, so I want to be
Yeah.
respectful of everyone's time, and
I
especially.
can take time for one more question if you'd
Okay,
like.
great, yes. And I wanted to remind everyone real quick as well, I did just resend the discount code as well as the links to the classes that Deborah is offering the attendees today, a 50% discount, and that code is good through May 7th. So I have resent that in the chat for if there are any people that didn't see that earlier. And we'll go to one more question. Could you please tell in detail how to apply vegan design in commercial projects, for example, in a retail apparel store? If you've ever maybe done any commercial clients personally, or if you have a strategy for how you would apply that to
Yeah,
a
I
commercial
mean, just with
project?
commercial spaces, clearly the issue you have with commercial and codes is that things have to be fire retardant and resistant. So it's impossible to do things that are non-toxic. It just isn't, the law won't allow it right now. But, your options for me, commercial spaces are a piece of cake because I'm using faux leathers. I'm just using I use Sunbrella a lot. I love Sunbrella because they're GOTS certified and Okotex certified, and they're durable as heck. I use Sunbrella even in my own home, and I use it in a lot of residential projects because they're durable, especially for families that have pets, which is another great niche because, more and more homeowners have pets. And so designing for durability and for pets is wonderful. Generations now aren't getting married as young as they were before. They're not having children as many children, and they're not having children right away. So there's all different demographics that you can attack when you graduate, of ones that interest you. But commercial spaces for us that's like a no-brainer.
Great, thank you so much. And I'm starting to see that some people are providing their thanks and appreciation for
Thank you.
your time, for your honesty, for your insight. I saw a couple of comments earlier just on how important transparency and honesty is. and also how thankful they are that opportunities such as this to sit here and speak with you and listen to you, pioneers of the design industry. And so I know everyone here today, and as well as the student ASID board, we are all so appreciative of the time that you took today and the information that you provided, and that you continue to provide us each day through the various resources that you educate everyone.
Thank you. I'm seeing all these lovely comments. Taking a quick look. Thank you guys so much. Look, I really appreciate you listening to me go on and on about vegan design. And any questions that you have, you can post them on the Facebook group, or you can always email us at hello@vegandesign.org. And I wish you all the best of luck. And that's it. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Deborah, and thank you, everyone. And I did see a few questions. I just wanted to let you all know that we did record today's presentation, and we will be working on getting this together. And we hope to have this released as part of our lecture series coming this summer. So please keep an eye on our Instagram page as well as our monthly newsletters, and we'll be sure to let everyone know that when these are available to watch at a later date. And thank you again, everyone. And thank you, Deborah. Have a great weekend.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone. Thank you.